Welcome back, Tyler.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm in. Got to catch up. It's been a minute. So you relocated down to Texas. How's all that going on?
Good, good. I still personally am here in California. I bought a house here a while back, so I can't really relocate. But yeah, the business is down in El Paso, Texas, as far as where we're shipping stuff out of. So it's a big change, but California really wasn't, like we were saying, conducive to small sewing and manufacturing companies like us. I think we kind of hung out there for probably about 5 years too longer than we should have. But yeah, now we're right in the middle of America and we can ship to everybody in every different direction. And before, it was being in California, shipping to people on the East Coast was really, really expensive. So now we get to be in the middle and in a great little shipping hub. So it's nice.
Nice. And your product, your base product is being manufactured the same place it always was, correct? Before you guys stitch it?
Yeah, yeah. So we're manufacturing down in Juarez, Mexico, which is right next to El Paso, Texas. So they're just right over the border from each other. But our main manufacturing people and sewing machines, it's all still the same stuff, the same people. So obviously we were from California before, and our guy David, he's the man, and he's been managing it for 8, 9 years now, and he still is. So yeah, we really love where we're at. We just got a new load of our fabric from the state of Georgia, from a company that's been making it for us for 8 or 9 years. And we commonly joke with these people and just other people around, and even people that are, the only problem we have with our products is they last too long. It's like, a funny little joke, but I mean, it's a true story. We've been making these pots since 2015 officially as a company. Before we were making them, before that, not even branded as a company, selling them on Craigslist to just random people that would show up to our warehouse. So it started from that to being branded as Grassroots, and then us obviously listening to our customers and them complaining about fabric pots and telling us how fabric pots suck. And we're like, no way, man, fabric pots are the coolest thing in the world. So, obviously we were introduced to the liner and adding a liner on the inside of the fabric pots and making our living soil pots and beds. Now it's turned into, we're Grassroots fabric pots, and we mainly make custom raised beds. We don't really make fabric pots anymore as a generic thing. So it's really kind of interesting to see how we've transitioned over there. I've been working for the company for 10 years. So I've seen quite the transition over the last 10 years from us being a fabric pot manufacturer to now us making custom raised beds for all these indoor living soil grows and outdoor grows. Yeah, sorry if you hear a call coming through there, that's a Grassroots customer looking for something right there. So it'll go away in a moment.
You can't mute it, so don't worry about it. It's all good. So what have you seen in the last 10 years as far as growth? What percentage of growth?
Well, it's definitely changed. We used to sell mainly 45-gallon and 65-gallon fabric pots. Those were like the main thing we wanted to sell. Those were the breadwinners. And we sold a lot of those. Thousands and thousands of those every year. And now, it got to the point where we made 4,000 or 5,000 of them, and we still got them hanging out, on hand. And it's really more the beds. So it's been a big transition from people, in my opinion, really moving to be comfortable with larger soil masses. So before it was, I'm going to do a 5 or 7 gallon in my tent, and that's pushing it, and they used to toss it out every time. Now it's like, I'm holding on to this soil for as long as I can, and they actually know the benefits of it, and they know it's a battery, and they can take care of it, and they can build it up stronger over time. And now the whole bottom watering tech and horizontal soil systems that you've brought out there, it's just like all these new worlds that we go into and new versions of living soil. I still feel like we're in its infancy. So, we've seen a lot of transition over the last 10 years, but I'm really excited to see where we can go with this and what we do in the future. So um, I think it's beautiful. I hope that answered a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny. I've been working with a couple of, God, there's probably at least three new people who have reached out about the horizontal soil systems. And they're always asking, well, can I do a pot? I don't really want to do a bed. It barely fits in my tent. And I'm like, sure, it's not a problem. I mean, I've done a horizontal soil system in a 6-inch pot and had it work great. When I moved, I had all these house plants that were so overgrown, and I just replicated that system in the house pots, and now the plants are just absolutely exploding in growth. So it doesn't really matter the size, and a couple of them I think have already ordered from you some of your probably older inventory in the smaller pots, or maybe you've custom made them. I don't know, but yeah, it has been a really interesting transition. I think we have 3 or 4 commercial grows that are, I'm talking big grows that transitioned into horizontal, and just having some incredibly rich production, as well as increased terpenes and cannabinoid production, etc. So I'm so glad that we found each other, because you are the ideal system for that. And God forbid they do have to move, they can take it apart. Whereas you build it in any kind of material, brick, mortar, timber, and you have to move, you lose everything. So that's the real beauty of it. And like you said, you're like me. You're almost anti-business, because you just make one sale to the client, and it's so good it lasts. I mean, have you had anything fail yet in 10 years?
There's random things that have happened. I do everything I can to encourage people to hire really cheap labor for guys that want to come out and weed whack your property and come out and destroy my product. You know what I mean? So you have to buy new ones, because it seems like that's the only time people will have to, like if you come out a weed whacker with my product, it might survive it. I've actually done it in my front yard quite a bit. But sometimes you got these guys that have this like chainsaw end to their weed whacker, or like a metal attachment, and other things to it, made for going through 1-inch like little saplings and stuff. And it's like, no, my product's not going to make it through that. We've had people that have ran tractors up and down, rows, and ripped like a 30-40 foot section in the beds. And we've sent them fabric to kind of, piece it back together and stuff like that, so they can make it through the season. So it happens. It definitely does, So we try to say they're good for about 5 years, but people are taking them way longer than that.
That's awesome. It's good for the public. It's good for your clients. It's probably not as great for you, but I assume you're still, profitable and doing well, and perhaps expanding in these raised beds.
We really want to get into the normal gardening industry. I see so many of these people in other YouTube channels promoting gardening products and, metal raised beds. And it's like they produce so much heat in the sun, and sometimes they're just going to cook that little bit of soil that's so close to the metal. Like, my product is so much better in some of these high heat areas, high, dry climates, compared to a metal bed that's out there. Like, I know my tan fabric doesn't look as beautiful or as sexy as some of these, metal cladded kind of beds, but I really think we have a lot to offer the normal gardeners and normal garden industries, and we're a cheaper product. And you can pick up you can pick up a 100-foot raised bed, a 4x100 raised bed with 4 people, and move it into position. Same thing with a couple of 4x8 raised beds. One person could pick those up and put them in the perfect configuration that they need, make the perfect aisleways, and then start filling them with soil. Compared to any other product, it's way too heavy to move or transition or bring to another property, like you said. So we really want to get into these other markets, and I really think we have a lot to offer.
So interestingly enough, I had a client out here who I suggested your product, but he was a landscape architect, and he wanted something that was a little bit more, like you said, pretty to the eye. And he did go with those corrugated metal. I think they were oval shapes. And I warned him. I said, look, my gut feeling is you're gonna cook the soil on the inside with the metal. And he's like, no, come here. And he brought me over to one that he had already installed as I was just getting involved with it. And I touched it, and sure enough, it was cool on the outside. But I went back to my car and I got a thermometer. And I dropped it down in compost thermometer, and I dropped it down right inside on the edge. And you're absolutely right. That soil did heat up. And then from that point on, he added insulation to every one of the ones as they came in. That was, again, that first one was more of a display for his client to see what it looked like and decide yes or no. But his client did go ahead and prove, I think, 15 of them. And each one of them, after that experiment, they lined them all. So you're spot on as far as the power your product has over those metal containers. And if I were you, I'd like try to create a marketing strategy behind that, because why not? I mean, eventually the wood that holds those metal pots together is going to rot. I mean, they made it out of cedar, but eventually it's going to rot, in probably 10 years, whereas yours will probably still be fine after a time.
We're not in a drought right now, but we still need to be hesitant of the water usage that we do have and what we're doing. So it's also for the millions of people that are using those metal beds that aren't able to do that experiment and know that they need to insulate them. It's a lot more water that all these people are using to keep their soil wet, to just get it to where they need to as well. So, if we want to think about, ultimate conservation and moving towards a regenerative path forward, we need to think on all levels. And that definitely comes down to water usage. And water is your biggest, element, one of your biggest growing elements that you're using. So it's something we need to keep as precious as possible.
And another thing too is that out here, in California, we have a major ground squirrel problem, out of control. And unfortunately, the state, with its typical friggin' ass backwards approach to everything, took the ability for people to get gopher snakes. So gopher snakes were banned from the state of California unless they're in the wild. But of course, a lot of them have been killed off with the practices, the human expansion and farming practices and everything else. So the squirrels are completely out of balance and out of whack. And even some of the farms that I've worked at that set up 6 owl houses around the perimeter, and the owls came and they had little fletchlings, but they still can't keep up with these ground squirrels. And they've actually progressed into poisoning. And I'm like, oh, dude, that's not good, because what happens when one of the owls does eat the ground squirrel and it's poisoned, right? You're going to kill your owls off. So it's just a vicious circle. But the beauty of your product is, again, you're above ground, and all you have to do is roll out some, what do they call that mesh?
Like a hardware cloth.
Yeah, hardware cloth. And put the bed on top of it, and you're off to the races. They're not going to. And even if you have to wrap it up the sides a little bit, just to discourage them from trying to bore in the sides, it's going to work fantastic. Maybe that's your marketing strategy. It's just to get a break and fold it around the bottom 12 inches and market them that way.
And I think there's a lot of people. It's one of the most common questions we get is, can I use these beds on a concrete surface or a hard surface? And we always say yes, you can do that. It's great to separate yourself in between there. You're going to stain the concrete, obviously, because of the organics and the soil and the moisture and everything. And it can be pressure washed and fixed and stuff like that. But, we encourage you to use the largest mass of soil that you can in whatever area that you can. I really think is what we're trying to communicate to people.
Yeah. And I mean, you can make it as wide as you want, or you can just do rolls, which is even better because then you can get in between them.
Yeah. But it's honestly a really fun job that I have when people contact us, and whether they're coming from pathways at you, and we're doing compost covers for people, or custom size raised beds. We've actually opened it up to where we have almost no minimum order right now because it's the off season and I want to keep my people working. So it's pretty much taking any size order, any custom size raised bed that you want. It really tries to make everything on our website so you wouldn't have to buy custom. But obviously, I can't do that for everybody. So we're really trying to open it up to where we can make anything that anybody wants. And we're going to charge you just what it costs to get it done. So
nice. Thanks for pulling that up, Ken. So another thing is I wanted to update you on the Typar compost covers.
Yeah, definitely. I've been trying to tell people about that, and it's great to hear something from there. How those been going?
Unbelievable how well they work. And two factors. Number one, the ability for them to hold moisture in. Remember the one we flipped over? We flipped the fabric over just to see what was going to happen. We put the Typar on backwards versus with the smooth side down. That one totally does not, it's not nearly as good as the one where the Typar is showing on the bottom for two reasons. Number one, have you ever tried to drag one of those covers off of a compost pile by yourself?
Yeah, it's like everything's like sticking to it like Velcro almost,
Yep, and as you pull it, it gets worse and heavier and heavier and heavier. Mm-hmm. And say again?
Especially if it's wet, I'm sure it's.
Oh yeah, and the compost is moist, so you're just and you're trying to pull it off so you can water it or at least maintain it. So it's a lot of work. It's heavy as hell. Well, with the Typar, zip, one-handed, slides off like nobody's business. Easy to install, easy to remove. Now, the one that was backwards acts just like, or not just like, but very similar to the cover by itself. It grabs everything. It's hard to pull. It's a lot more work to do that. So I'd highly recommend it. Maybe even some of these like Catalyst Bioamendments and some of the other, quality compost makers, make a couple small, what is the width? 8? So make an 8x8 and let them play with it. Because if they start really, playing with it and understanding how much easier it is to work with, they've got a great audience, right? So I would tend to think that would be a great new market that you could explore.
Yeah, we would love to make as many of them as possible. They're really easy to make, and we obviously still have that little bit of that roll left of the one that you have for that material. But it's kind of the same thing. It's like we would love to make them for people. We would love to get it done, and I think the ultimate constraint with those things is shipping costs because shipping them can be expensive. But you're just buying them once. That's the thing you got to look at. I was telling other customers on the phone, let's get it right. Let's maybe make it a little bit bigger than we need to. I've been telling people like, if you have a compost pile out there, throw a rope over it and then add a couple feet on either end, so you got more. And then, measure that rope so we know how wide it really needs to be because we can put multiple pieces of fabric together. So, it's really cool that we get to make those where my people love making something different than they, normally make every single day. So as you can imagine.
Cool. So one of the things is that the 100-foot one is now because of how well it performed on my windrows. I've brought it down to the vermicompost side of Peach Hill Soils, and so that they're going to start using it because they're actually looking for more covers for their vermicompost as they expand it. And I'm like, well, why don't you try this one compared to the fabric that you're using, which is. It doesn't hold moisture. It does the same thing. It just gets stuck in the compost, and they're watering, like all the time now. So they're going to start experimenting with it. So hopefully that'll bring you some more business. And I'm actually looking to go. I'm making what's called it would look like a pile, right? I actually make a volcano. So I build up a pile, about a 10-yard pile. And I flatten the top down, and I use a big lawn rake, and I rake out the center and make little sides on it. That's how I'm watering, and it's way more effective than all of the other watering techniques that I've done. with the windrows, and it's like a 50th of the time that it took me, when I was like either gravity flowing, with a little sprinkler system, or these drip hoses that I drilled holes in. The water doesn't it doesn't stick to the compost, right?
It's hydrophobic.
Yeah, well, and that's a big problem out here, right? I mean, it goes hydrophobic on the outside in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And worse yet, the surface tension of the drip irrigation is nowhere near as much as the little spinny, not the micro sprinklers. I'm talking about the ones that look like, basically they look like a little plate on the bottom, and they look like one of the pinwheels that the kids used to run around with in the circus and stuff. And as the water pushes through it, it makes the top spin, so it kind of breaks the surface tension of the water. Again, that was really 10 times more effective than the drip. But even still, because of the fact you have to get it to penetrate, which again, it does 5-10 times better, but you can only do so many sprinklers in a row due to the water pressure, because what happens is the first one gets the most water, and the last one, of course, is down to just a dribble. So you can only use like 2 in line at most, even though I have good street pressure. So now with this volcano method, I basically build the volcano, fill the water up till just a couple inches below the rim, because I have had it where I filled it up too high, and then I left and came back the next day and it eroded a hole in it. Just all the water went out and spread the compost down the yard. So I've learned, that you kind of got to be a little bit more careful than get too crazy on it. But by doing that, I've been able to cut the time from basically 2 to 3 hours of windrow down to about 15 minutes. And my windrows were never really wide because of the width of the tarp. Remember, we talked about that. It was like, and basically the max height I could get was probably 4.5 feet tall, because it was more of a mound than like a pyramid. And I'd lose the bottom. Like I couldn't get the tarp all the way down to, the floor or what we're building on. And so I was losing a lot of the bottom, like foot and a half, due to that solarization or just hydrophobic problems because of the sun and the dryness in the air. So my next purchase from you will be 16 by 16, which I haven't perfected this yet, whether it's a 10-yard or 12-yard pile. I'm still playing with. Like I did a number of 10 yards. I was really happy with the response. And this latest one I did is a 12-yard. Because again, while you're doing it, it's just as easy to make a 12-yard as a 10-yard. And of course, efficiency. It's all about, making it more efficient. So once I get that sweet spot nailed down, I'll be reaching back out to you to get one for this experiment, to see how well it works. And if it works as good as I believe it will, there'll be another line of products that you can come up with where people start to think about piles instead of windrows. In Catalyst's situation where they have this compost turner, they're always going to be in windrows. But for other composters who don't or can't afford that type of equipment, I'm definitely finding that this pyramid style is working fantastic, not only with watering, but protozoa and nematode production.
Yeah, it's beautiful to see more and more customers doing their own compost piles and using what we had there. And that was the great part about that last soil summit is seeing all that stuff in person compared to it in the last video was amazing. So
yeah. So tell me, you're going up to Montana. Do you have the dates for that yet?
Yeah, September 8th and 9th. I think it's actually 7th, 8th, and 9th for the KISS Organics Cultivation Science event, where they have a bunch of different workshops, or I guess tours that they're leading, and a bunch of other speakers as well. It's going to be at Collective Elevation in Bozeman, Montana.
Is that a cannabis grow?
Yeah, it's a cannabis grow. One of the largest cannabis grows in Montana. They do all living soil. It's like an ultimate showcase of our products because the owner, Adam, has been buying our beds literally since I think 2016 or 17. So he can see like all the different iterations of our product and the growth that we've done over the years on this farm because they're still in use to this day. Even beds that he purchased like just a year ago. So it's going to be a great event. Obviously, just living soil based with a lot of great speakers, a lot of great educators. Tad from Kiss Organics is hosting this and has created this event. He's been to a lot of events. He was obviously involved in my soil summit that I did. I've actually been helping Tad and Adam on the back end of this event plan some of this and a few of their meetings, just helping them through some of the pitfalls that we had in having our event, because that definitely does happen. But I'm excited to see what they do. They've got a really scientific view of how they do living soil and how they coach their people and the different growers that are going to be there. They even have a tasting event on the last day. So the last time I was in Montana was about a year ago for an event, and I was absolutely blown away with how many living soil growers are in Montana. If there was like a hub for living soil, it's for sure a lot of that is in Montana. There's a lot of amazing growers that have moved there, that have been there doing it for a long time because of the medical market. So there's a couple even dispensaries that I walked into. One, you look through the window and there's a bunch of our raised beds and bottomless pots and people doing living soil right there. So yeah, Montana is an amazing place. It's a beautiful background, beautiful scenery, and we get to be there in September, which is like the main prime season for people getting married up there and having a great time. So it'll be fun.
So Big Sky, right? Big Sky country?
Yep, in that area. Last time I was there, it was absolutely epic, and it was more towards the winter. So now we get to be there in late summer. So I'm excited.
Nice, yeah, because it gets real warm in the summer and real cold in the winter. So my question is, are they purely indoor, or do they do some outdoor cultivation in the spring and summer?
Adam definitely does. He does outdoor. He does complete straight outdoor. He does hoop house. So that's like outdoor / greenhouse in a certain sense for them. And then they've got fully sealed greenhouses, I believe Next Gen and one other brand, fully sealed greenhouses, that are obviously where they've got assisted lights in there. So they definitely have one of the cleanest setups that I've seen, Collective Elevation. Their guy, Danny Jane, really knows living soil. And on our Instagram, we did a cool little video where we toured their facility. It was amazing. They definitely have their own way of doing things, but it's definitely one of the best ways for sure.
Can you talk about it, or is it IP?
I mean, they're actually very open. They're open, and that's one reason why they're having this event there. Is they're having tours. That's one of the great things why you should buy a ticket to the event and go there, because if you're looking to open up a living soil facility, you get to walk through one multiple times. I mean, they're having different tours at different times for different reasons. They've got Suzanne, the bug lady, that's going to be doing a walkthrough tour there for identifying bugs. They've got a greenhouse person that's coming through as well. So a lot of really great knowledgeable people, plus growers themselves are actually obviously going to be there to just hang out and share their knowledge. And that's one of the best things I've noticed about living soil is I think most people are willing to share, their tips and tricks compared to other ways. People are kind of hiding things, trying to think they're special or the best, so.
Yeah, I always struggle with that when I first got involved with the cannabis industry, and I was like, "Oh no, that's our secret. We don't tell anybody how we do it." And here we are at a living soil conference, right? And they want to know more about what we're doing, but at the same time, they're still trying to hide their IP on the chemistry side of it, which was kind of like weird. I didn't understand the vibe. Here we are giving it to you in a way that you can learn enough over the 3 days to go home and actually do it successfully. Where it took you how many years to perfect your recipe? How many greenhouse crashes did you have? But I guess that's just the cannabis industry as a whole. So it's really interesting that you say Montana is like a real hub. I mean, I thought Michigan was crazy big. Have you been moving much material into Michigan these days?
Yeah, I would say Michigan has always been a consistent one. I definitely just think Montana has just just shipping a lot of product there. It's just really interesting. The other one too is obviously New Jersey and New York right now. There's a lot of build outs going on there, and a lot of, I think, the highest concentration of customers out there in that area right now. So that's the other hotbed. But other than that, I definitely feel like living soil is becoming more understood in that market of like, hey, are we going to do hydro rock wool or we're going to do living soil? It's like used to be far and few between. Now it's like, people coming at us like so confident about doing living soil. It's very exciting.
Yeah, let's face it, it's easier, it's more forgiving, and as long as you're paying attention to make sure that you're actually getting real microbes. Once you get it established, it's a one and done. It's like, anti-business.
Yeah, and the one thing I'd say that drives me crazy is it's like you would never go purchase a Porsche and then go and find the cheapest possible gasoline you can find and put it in there. Obviously you would find the best possible fuel you can. You'd put that 91 in there that they recommend. You wouldn't put the cheapest corner gas station gas in there. And that's the one thing that confuses me with some of these build outs is people are, the nicest building, the nicest lights, the nicest control system. They're getting the nicest grassroots beds that are out there. But then they're putting, subpar soil in there. And that's the heart of the system. I tell people I'd rather have them sacrifice in other areas and just make sure you get really, really good soil. I wish they would start there, and understand how important that is. And it just tells me that they don't count on using that soil for a long time. Some of our long-term customers plan on passing on their indoor living soil that they're using to the next generation, literally. Like Steve Cantwell, he's like, my kid's going to be growing in this soil, and the kid's sitting there stomping around in it right now, so it's interesting.
Well, here again, that's why, I put this horizontal system together for people, because that is forever. You will never have to change it. You might have to add a little organic matter on the surface once in a while, but it will always function. You'll always have minerals for 10, 20 generations. We're still around.
Yep. And that's the goal of having something that's just going to last as long as, it's like when I went to South America and I saw, Machu Picchu, it's like they built those things with so purpose to have them there for thousands of years. It's like, we don't even build houses nowadays for them lasting at least 100 years, and it's like, look at things on a longer term basis compared to such a, current, thing is such a short term, gratification. So.
Oh man, I could tell you stories. I mean, when I was a contractor, I worked on houses. The oldest house I worked on was like early 1700s, and it was post and beam. Yeah, things were a little out of plumb and a little out of square. Things were warped and settled, but it was still there, right? And nowadays, these houses like this one I'm living in, that was built in the 70s, it's not going to be around in 100 years. There's no friggin' way. It's rotting all over the place. They didn't use quality materials. You got to pay now more so for quality materials than you did. And, that's all due to printing money and inflation and everything else. But if you don't do it, then no, it's not going to last. And, if people just throw potting soil into these beds, they're going to have a problem that, at the end of the day, it still goes anaerobic on the bottom and hydrophobic on the top. in the sides. So, it makes it so much more difficult to water. But people will learn, you lead the horse to water, but not all the horses will drink. Now, are you teamed up with anybody in a living soil mix that you recommend for people?
We really kind of want to. I mean, it's if you our website, we've kind of made a lot of changes in the last couple of years. I think we were honestly on the oldest archaic system that was out there, and I've worked really hard to update us in the newest ways possible, and it allows us to sell other products and even create bundle packages. So like right now on our website, you can buy a Grassroots fabric pot. You can buy some really cool veggie plants, live plants shipped right to your door. And now the last piece of that puzzle would be to have a really good high quality soil on there. So you could say, hey, I'm going to buy a container. I'm going to buy plants. I'm going to buy soil. I'm actually going to grow. And I can like click, and it's going to show up to my house, and I'm going to be doing that. This is one of the plants from that veggie company. It's a company we work with in Southern California called Circa Cultivation, and we're selling their seedlings on our website. We even started selling the Blue Mat irrigation system for our raised beds on our website. So we would love to create more, like packages together. So I mean, Leighton, if you had a soil mix in a bag that was ready to sell right now, and we could do it through my website, like that's kind of my ultimate goal. Like I'm going for, and like I don't want to have just one option in every area. I'd love to have multiple different options, but like the ultimate goal though is like you really have to find a soil source that's close to you. I really do think you need to do minimize shipping costs. But that's kind of like our ultimate goal is to make it to where people can, build a bundle on our website and grow plants with our products.
Well, hell yeah. Put me on there. We'll talk, after the show or whatever. But the key is I have an A Horizon mix that I can put in super sacks. Yeah, shipping is bummer, right? But if a lot of these people who, have a single 4x8 bed, and don't have the time and energy, or they're in the inner cities and they just don't know where to find sand soaked clay, specifically the organic matter. You can buy the commercial compost, but what I could do is actually ship the whether it's a super sack or smaller, because a 4x8 you're really not going to need that much. And I could throw an inoculant in there as well, so that when they do buy their local junk commercial compost, they can at least inoculate it with the biology. So yeah, I'm serious. Let's do that. I've already shipped, God, all over the place. I have an East Coast source for blending, but everything, halfway into the country, I've shipped to Colorado. I've shipped to what's it called? Kansas City, Missouri.
Yeah.
Shipped a little to Texas. So it's definitely an option. And at Peat Chill, they have, the scales, the pallets, everything to make it, very effective. And of course, I blend up soil and compost together for certain clients doing orchard restorations. And that's been like a real big thing in the last probably year and a half, where there's just no soil left out here. Like everything is so burned out, overused and abused with chemistry that you basically have this crust. And so I've been working with different landscapers to teach them how to remove the crust, soften it up with water, remove it, and then use this modified A Horizon that's got a lot more organics in it, and put it in, and then cover it with chips. And oh my God, that when that soil, that A Horizon, modified A Horizon, connects with that soil, you can go back there and just stick your whole fist down in it, like all the way up to your wrist, versus before you bent your finger trying to just push it in there. So it's working fantastic. The tree response, the plant response is just over the top, to the point where people see, you've done 3 trees and they got 20 more. The 3 trees that you did within a month are just exploding. And they're like, oh my God, well, why aren't we all doing this stuff? So it's starting to catch on. So it would be no extra work whatsoever to transition you into the group and ship it. And there are some bags that I found that are pretty beneficial. There was it had a liner on the inside, and it was a white paper bag on the outside of recycled paper or cardboard, I think it was. And the white reflects the sun, so if it does sit outside, it doesn't just cook. Because I don't know if you're in my experience, when you put it into the clear plastic bags, if it gets exposed to the sun, it just turns it to dust, like within minutes, because you have little holes in it. So the moisture just gets sucked out of those little holes, and you just basically lost all your organisms.
Yeah. And no matter what you have, I think even in those super sacks, I try to explain to my customers that, that super sack gets filled and it's probably perfectly mixed how it should be. It's like beautiful and luscious from the manufacturer. From all of them are typically like that, and they get put on that truck and it gets sent off where it is, and it settles and it does this, shakes the whole time, and a lot of that stuff will settle down to the bottom of that super sack. So I think people have to understand, when you get a super sack delivered to you, a lot of times I recommend you need to take that thing and completely remix that whole super sack before you refill your actual containers with it, because there's a lot of stuff that could have settled down, and there could be hot spots on the top, could be hot spots most likely at the bottom. It's definitely something that some people don't consider, but needs to be done, in my opinion, especially if you travel thousands of miles.
Yeah, especially those super soils. You're definitely get hot spots because the mineral powders are going to sink, whereas the organics are going to float up to the top, or the perlite's going to float up to the top. So, that's a really important piece of information to tell people.
Yeah, and then obviously when you're filling a bed or working in the soils, these are chances to inoculate, opportunities for inoculation. And I think people get blown away sometimes when I talk to people on the phone. They're like, "Oh, I didn't think about it. It's a time saver." I'm like, "Yeah, set your buddy up with a garden hose, a sub pump, and a drum, and be doing a liquid inoculation with at least a compost extract or something like that, or keeping things wet, like preventing these things from going hydrophobic." It's such a great opportunity to be building such a piece of artwork, in my opinion. So it's like, put every effort into it that you can in those little areas.
Have you ever listened to Tom Landry on this podcast?
Tom Landry.
He's a grower.
The name's so familiar.
Yeah, he's a grower up in Canada. Lakeview Cultivation, I think is his name.
Lakeview Gardener on Instagram, and he's in New Brunswick, I believe.
That sounds very familiar. I think I do know the guy.
Yeah, he's got your product, dude. He just set up a new greenhouse with a modified A horizon, and is having, again, tremendous success with it. And he's gone down the rabbit hole of really playing with understanding the microbes, getting verified third-party documentation of what's there, what the levels are. He uses Andy Marsh of Rhizos .science down in Texas. And he's like, he's the kind of guy that if you've got somebody who wants to move into living soil and wants kind of a mentor or somebody that is next level on understanding how all these things work together, do refer him, refer them to his Instagram, and they can DM him directly, like your guy in Montana, same idea. It's giving them the comfort that they're not alone, and that when they're doing this, they can get advice from people. Maybe that's another thing that you could put on your website is like kind of like free information or free consulting. Not everyone's going to do it for free, but if you had, a simple question, or just wanted to watch other people's reels to see how they're doing it and why they're doing what they're doing, that would be another great resource. I mean, it can only help, build your your base reputation as far as, you know, the clients that you have and the ones that are coming in. Because you're right, living soil is hot, dude. It's really hot.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of more building that we can do on our website. We kind of just rebuilt the whole thing from the bottom up and had to strip everything out of it and rebuilding everything. And there's a lot that I want to add to it. You know, a lot of galleries, a lot of things to show how people are using our different products in different ways. You know, another one to comment on is the guys out in Tennessee. Ounce of Hope Organics. They're doing a horizontal living soil system, and they follow you very, very closely, Leighton. And they were at our event and were pretty much right next to you when you were doing your speech the whole time, and we're super excited that you were there. And they've been very successful with their horizontal system, and I think they really benefit from the bottomless pots. It's like a better utilization of the whole system in a certain sense. So they're definitely somebody that needs to be highlighted for sure.
Well, you know what? I don't know who they are. Ken, maybe you can reach out to them and bring them on, because, you know, I'm a big advocate. I want more and more people to find out about this system, because I feel bad for the people that just get the super soil and throw it in this, you know, in this bed and then expect it to last forever. And it's because it's not. You're going to have to add nutrients, because you don't have the sand, silt, and clay, which can be mined by the biology. You know, you're losing all of those specific biological functions that create those terpenes and cannabinoid productions, especially the miners. Like the expressions that are coming out of some of these cannabis plants, because they had the sand, silt, and clay to mine for nutrients, are next level compared to ones grown in just a plain super soil. So, you know, the more the word gets out, the better. And I'll be honest, I had a couple clients out here that stumbled upon me and was like, will this work, you know, on my soil here in California? And I said, absolutely. And I told them, Grassroots pots is the key. You're not going to lose moisture from the sides. Just make sure you put the hardware cloth down underneath, and you'll be off to the races. And I've had at least 2, if not 3, do it. And I told him, you don't need the sand layer. You're on hard pan, so just use the A, use your wire cloth, use the A, and then just use the O horizon, and you'll be fine. And yeah, it's worked really well out here in this condition.
Yeah, it was Ounce of Hope. They're in, I think, Knoxville, Tennessee. But they're an aquaponics farm. So they've got like tilapia in like this whole aquaponics room, and then the liquid off of that is fed into their beds. So it's an aquaponics living soil grow. They elevated their beds off the ground with pallet racking.
Okay.
One thing that I like to highlight is a lot of people, you know, you can do next gen rolling benches. That's a really great option. You know, some people are like, okay, well, I want to DIY it completely myself. So, you know, we have a lot of people that will use warehouse pallet racking. That's what Ounce of Hope did. They have them just like a foot, the bed's like a foot off the ground. I've had some other people that have even made them rolling as well, where they've made the pallet rackings kind of rolling and the bed's mobile. So there's a lot of different ways that you can make these setups high tech, very high tech. You don't really need to. I always, you know, try to tell people keep it as simple as possible. You know, and obviously that's why, you know, a lot of people are successful. The simpler, the better. So
I'm into that. Amen. And there's this dude up in Maine. I loved what he did. He built 2 foot by 4 foot boxes, plywood boxes, lined the inside with, I'm pretty sure it was rubber roofing, but maybe it was that tile liner, and put casters on them, the ones you buy at Home Depot for like $20. They're really inexpensive. They're like 500 pounds per solid tire. I think they're like 4 inches tall. And he plays Tetris. So he wheels all of these out into his, you know, area where his work area, and then flips them, goes through them, and wheels them back in. And he goes, Leighton, it's kind of like playing Tetris. It's fun.
it could be perpetual, though. You know, I visited a grow in Colorado where they moved everything. They have beds on 4x4 plastic pallets.
Yeah.
And we had 4x4 beds, and they had, just pallet movers where they moved the pallets around. And it was like they had this giant flowering space, and then they would move things and just keep it perpetual. So there always had plants that were like a week away from harvest, and then moving in things. So it was like, and it was, great because they had a dispensary right there on site. So they always had fresh flavors for the patients, which was important, customize it to what's going to work best to you.
That's a great idea. I had not thought about that one. Yeah, because the pallet jack is designed to take super heavy pallets. So, you don't need a fork truck. You just go in there, pump it up, roll it out.
Yep. We have a place in Arizona that uses our beds in the same configuration on plastic pallets under their worm bins. So, they run this metal thing through the bottom of the worm bin. It's connected to a wire on a winch, and it's a metal bar that comes through the bottom of the metal worm bin, and it just creates to where things fall through. And then they have them to where they land in our beds. And then the beds can be moved out when they're full, stored, and then bagged up for people to sell. So they haven't let me share their name of what they do and how they do it, but they've been using our beds for over 4 years now for producing worm castings. So
wow, fantastic. So they don't like you to advertise them?
We'd talked about it and stuff like that, but I think they're like, they have their own brand that they're promoting, their own thing that they're doing. They're more in the gardening kind of world. They're not involved with cannabis by any means, or our community per se is how I felt. So
yeah, people do get touchy about cannabis, and I don't understand why. Maybe the stigma of the whole garb. What was that movie? Cannabis Crazy, or it was
Cannabis Madness, or something.
Yeah, something like that. Something Madness. It's just sad. I mean, that plant, hemp was the mainstay in feed and rope making until the 20s, and then it became demonized by DuPont. Yeah, Reefer Madness. That's what it was. Thanks, Kate. Anyway, so any other developments going on, with you guys? New products coming out, or?
Well, the bottom watering tech is really something, I kind of ignored for a long time, but now has been so popular. I don't know if you've heard of the brand Autopots or Autopot. They have just a tray with a little system with a float. So it keeps the bottom reservoir kind of full of water, and they're planning on it wicking up into the system. So those have been very, very popular. We've been making pots to fit those systems, the auto pot systems. They have a tray to grow system where it's a little bed that fits in that tray. So we've been making a lot of those. We would love to make more compost covers, that's for sure. The bottomless pots have always been something that's been going crazy.
Oh, that was genius. That was friggin' genius.
Yeah, those bottomless pots, we sell a lot of those. And people ask again, how long do they last? How many times can I reuse them? Yet again, Steve Cantwell ordered the first ones, I think 4 or 5 years ago, and he's still using them to this day. And he's only placed 2 orders with us in the history of ever buying bottomless pots. I mean, again, I wish people would accidentally throw these things away.
Cool. Yeah, that was definitely a stroke of genius. I've told so many people about that. I say, hey, Dad, thinking about using bottomless pots. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Grassroots pots. Go to their website, get them. They work fantastic, and they're reusable over and over and over again.
Yeah, they are. And there's a lot of people experimenting with reusing the soil, re-amending the soil, not taking the soil out of them. Here's one right here. This is a nice, beautiful Thai basil plant, but the whole bottom of it is just completely full of roots. I've actually completely neglected this thing. It should have been actually transplanted into something else weeks ago, into another bed, but I've been keeping it for purposes like this. So I will transplant it and put it out into one of my raised beds in my front yard here so it can go out a little bit more. But the bottomless pots are amazing. It's really the goal was truly the first goal was labor efficiencies. Of how long does it take to reset this whole grow and dig out all those root balls, reset the soil, and do everything compared to just walking in the room, setting one of these bottomless pots on top of the soil. You could fill up a whole room in a day. It's just how long does it take to take these plants and put them and set them into the other room? That's, a really fast process compared to having to dig a hole, transplant each plant. I also looked at it too of like, plants are hardy, they're tough, they withstand transplant shock. But if your plant does go through transplant shock, you could lose up to, minimum of 2 weeks of growth, maybe 4 weeks of growth. Maybe the plant never does anything. You know what I mean? And it's like, if you're just taking that, eliminating one factor out of, okay, I don't have to worry about transplant shock now because my plants are just like, and it's done.
That's the genius of it. It works so perfectly with nature instead of, fighting nature. You let the plant do its thing, right? When you harvest it. Now, when they harvest it, are they pulling the root balls at that point, or are they just cutting it and leaving what's below ground, or in your knowledge or experience?
Well, what's happening with Steve is he's harvesting the plant, so there's like this just little stalk sticking up from the stem of the plant still sitting there, and instantly mushrooms are growing in the pot where the plant dies. So he posts pictures where it's like dead pot, live pot, dead pot, live pot. And it's this funny thing. I've got people that even email me, dead pot, live pot, dead pot, live pot, dead pot, live pot. It's this whole thing. Like once you harvest the plant, the mushrooms go in there and start eating the root ball and just going crazy. And then the live plant right next to it doesn't have any mushrooms growing in it. It's really interesting. It's just the process of life of like harvest the plant. The microbes know the plant's dead. So the worms attack it, the fungi attacks it, starts consuming the root ball. Probably 2 weeks after harvest, to answer your original question, they can take that bottomless pot and just give it a little twist, and those roots break off, and you could take it and remove it. A lot of high-end facilities are going to take that container, they're going to remove it, and then they're going to go clean out that bottomless pot. They're going to take that soil and put it into another super sack or an area, and they're going to contain it. A lot of people at that point will test that soil and make sure that there's no parasitic nematodes in there, or there's nothing that they're like adding back into their system. Because it's like, okay, if we take soil out of our system, store it somewhere for a while, what are we adding back into our system? So I think I've seen people have to unfortunately create protocols where they have to test stuff before they bring it back in there to prevent those things.
Well, it's the only time you'll ever get a parasitic nematode is if you're anaerobic. So as long as they're not overwatering, it's not an issue. And that's again why I don't like super soil, because it does go anaerobic down the base. So the potential for pathogens to colonize is skyrockets when you have those conditions.
And I think you're either going to see customers underwater or overwater. It's so common for people to be overwatering or underwatering. You know what I mean? It's like it's crazy.
Well, again, that's why the horizontal system is bulletproof. You can't overwater it because you overflow your tray. That's simple, And if you and you will know when it starts to dry out. You will definitely know before you have to panic. And that's again why I love Tom Landry. He uses a lot of these different meters and tech to understand and study dryback and understand water as a stressor or a de-stressor. That's right. I got to get Alex back on here. Alex created a system that's basically 3D printed. You can make your own parts. You could fix it in the field, and it does exactly that. It waters based on sensors, and once those sensors trip, then the water comes on automatically. The system is bulletproof, and I think 1 meter does up to 36 plants. And he was just getting into production about a year ago. he took a trip to Spain for about 5 years, burned out, came back, and reached out to me. And I was like, well, have you gotten into manufacturing yet? And he goes, I'm almost there. And that was like 6-8 months ago. So I got to reach out to him because I know people that can use that system. And this would be another amazing system for you to put on your website, just based on all of the tech. Or it's not even tech, dude. It's like anti-tech. It's so simple. It's brainless. And again, it's so easy to repair. If you break something, you can do it yourself, or you can order parts. He's all about like not anti-business, but more so user friendly. Not trying to squeeze a buck out of everybody. Make a really good product that lasts a long time, and people benefit from it because this prevents that over and underwater, especially in a super soil. That's where he started, in a super soil, and he actually grew peppers. This is where he learned. He grew peppers, and he had, I think it was twice as many peppers and twice as hot by using water as a stressor. So letting it go way down to so many millibars, and then water it back up till not oversaturated, not turning it into mud, and then letting it go all the way back down to this low level, and then bring it back up again. So he's just creating a rhythm, right? Just kind of like nature does.
Yeah, allowing that soil system to breathe.
He can do over 100,000 plants on one system.
Hey, Ken, come back on here for a minute.
Yes, sir.
So you have his contact, right?
Yes, I do.
Please send him out an email to please come on as soon as possible, because I've got farms out here I could use it on. We could get it on Tyler's website. He could finally start to get into market without spending any money, which would be really valuable. I mean, again, Tyler needs this, and I need it. I've got a farm of 2 different farms that I'm working with that are just a disaster in their watering practices. And then there's a high-end landscape, same thing. So yeah, let's rally him up. And to be honest with you, I don't know if you noticed that my phone rang. That was the call I was afraid I was going to get. So I'm going to have to bounce soon. But let's answer any questions. And unless there's something else you want to share, Tyler, because we can always have you back on in another few months or whatever. But if there's something else you wanted to share, just please go ahead and do it.
I think the last thing that I want to share is we've been really successful with our small microbe and plant food product line, just with people doing root dips. We've got some grows here in California, here in Sacramento, that are not living soil at all. These are literally guys in 1 gallon cocoa Rockwell cubes. There's even some of them that are specifically saying that they're doing this in a Synganics, kind of realm that they're doing it, and excited about it. And we've been very successful selling our mycorrhiza powder. It's combined with rock dust, fish hydrolysate, and other items, a super mycorrhiza. Have people do as a liquid root dip compared to dusting the hole and wasting a lot of product. You can use a very small amount of this and treat thousands and thousands of plants. So it's a very conservative way of using a mycorrhiza compared to a lot of other ways where it's like, hey, let's take this, let's dust the hole, let's use as much of it as we can as possible. And we promote, putting it in a liquid and dipping your roots into it. And if you time it correctly, when the root ball's dry, it absorbs it and creates that contact immediately that you want with mycorrhiza. And then you're also having water and food there at the same time. We believe if you're ever adding inoculating soil, you should be adding food in there with that inoculant. So it's like you'd never go hiking in the mountains without sufficient amount of food for the time that you suspect you're going to be there. It's the same thing when you inoculate soil. We feel you should be adding food in with your plants. So we've been very successful selling our microbe and plant food program. And it's definitely something you should look at, and it's something you could use on your cannabis plants, your veggie plants, your whole property and everything. It's very successful in the normal agricultural world, and we've been very successful selling it in the cannabis sector ourselves. Great product line to check out, and a great additive for sure.
Fantastic. I love that. Food, water, cover, baby. That's all your plant needs.
Well, and you got a different one for veg. You've got a different one for bloom as well. So that really helps people know what they need to put on when they need to put it on. But let's grab we got 2 questions. Your product actually breathes, doesn't it?
Yeah. So the living soil pots, the top part is has a liner where it cannot breathe. Then the bottom portion, the bottom 3 or 4 inches, has our normal fabric where it's breathable, and also the whole bottom of the container where it's breathable, and the roots can actually penetrate that fabric and grow past the fabric. We actually find root hairs that will pop out through the fabric. You'll find worm larvae can pass through the fabric and grow on the outside. And all of a sudden, you'll find a live worm in your tray, and you're like, "How did this guy get here?" Well, that's because he was small enough to pass through the fabric when he was a little baby junior, and then now he grew up on the outside of your fabric pot, and he's looking for nutrients. So yeah, it's the top part is not breathable. The roots will grow all the way to the edge of the container and start circling down, but they're not going to circle. They're going to start air pruning once they sense there's no liner there. So you get the best of both worlds, where you get root growth going all the way to the edge, and then you get air pruning at the bottom. So we have people that will use normal 3-gallon fabric pots and use our 3-gallon with the living soil liner in it and see a much larger plant because you have a better root system. Normal fabric pots are not all that they are cracked up to be. They actually suck. Air pruning, I feel like, actually is not that great of a feature. Actually, from everything that we've learned, air pruning kind of sucks. Fabric pots kind of suck. That's why we have a liner in there to prevent that hydrophobic bubble from happening. You know, we were seeing where the center of the soil was dry, and you would water the top, and it would just run off the sides. Kind of like what you were experiencing, Leighton, with some of your piles not holding water, and the water, you know, you water the top of it, and just wants naturally, it wants to go in this V cone shape kind of direction. Well, with that liner there, we can flood the top of the soil, and it pushes it down naturally. So that's the goal with our pots, is to recreate native soil and how native soil dries and drains naturally from the top down, because the sun is drying it out. And normal fabric pots are drying out from the top down and all these different sides. It's actually very unnatural. So that's why we have the liner, so we can recreate soil as natural as possible.
Yep, cool. Agreed. And the actual reason or mechanism behind that is that the bacteria go into what's called cyst form, and they create a wax coating around the outside of them, and that's what prevents the water from getting into the soil. So big kudos to the design that you guys came up with, because it does.
And we didn't design this. These is people coming to us telling us we've got to fix this product. You know, and people were wrapping their fabric pots with plastic on the outside. So I'd encourage anybody using a crappy fabric pot from overseas or wherever, just go wrap the outside of it with plastic, and you'll probably see mushrooms pop up in the first 24 hours. That's what told people, aha, okay, I figured it out. I've got to do something different, you know, so.
Yep. Oh, and there's my phone ringing, but here's the next question. Does he not water from the bottom in his grow?
So to answer the question is, he does both. We talked about rain events as well as what's called SIP. A SIP is a basic understanding of just you put the water in the bottom and let it breathe out. But he likes to do both, and I agree with him that makes sense. Again, you want kind of biomimic nature.
Yeah, and he is using the bottomless pots. That's how he's transplanting into his living beds.
The best system setup that I've seen is the capillary mats from like Blue Mats, where they have this mat that the roots can't grow into, and you can set the bottomless pots on top of it, and their little sensor keeps that whole little area wet. So that's super cool. But I bottom water this thing. You know, I top water it for the first week or two, and then I've only been bottom watering it since, to get those roots to grow to the bottom to hold all that soil in.
So Tyler, be really careful with those capillary mats, because I've had people get infestations. You're done.
Inside the mat itself?
Yep, they get inside that capillary mat, and there's no way to get rid of them. And I've had guys call me about, you know, like, how can I treat them biologically? And I'm like, you can't. You're in an anaerobic zone. You're not getting enough oxygen. once those mites or the nematodes get in there, you're done. You're going to have to pull the mat out. So I prefer to see just a tray, and not something that things can get into that you can't clean. So just it's one of those things that can be very, very problematic if you do get an infestation.
Yeah, I can see that little layer of foam in there that can definitely be like inhabited with something there. So that's definitely something you got to be real careful of, and that's why I also kind of keys me into something else that I try to tell people about or warn people about is like we always try to tell people, like, have a gap between your bed and a tray, or like the bed and the tent. A lot of people will contact us to get a custom size for their tent, and they're like, I can tell they're like not giving themselves much wiggle room. And it was like, if you make it just a little bit smaller, understand you have a very powerful soil. And a lot of times the plant's canopy or the plants are going to get a lot bigger than the soil mass. So a lot of times you don't have to max out, because if you're doing it right, you're going to have a lot of success. So give yourself a little bit of wiggle room there in some of these situations.
That's a great one. Why don't you come out with a line specifically for tents? Because I had another client that called me and said, look, the Grassroots pot is exactly the same size as my tent. And I was like, well, reach back out to them and have them make a smaller raised bed. So maybe come out with a tent bed. That's
well, and we would love to continue to do any sort of special setups or lines in the future, but we do make our 4x8, our 4x4, and the 3x3 are all made 2 inches smaller than the actual dimensions, so they fit into tents and trays. But I do have other customers that order even smaller sizes, because sometimes over time the soil will push the fabric out. I use the highest quality fabric I can use, but eventually it is going to stretch or bulge, I guess you can say, and then touch the side. So that's why I always say, give yourself some buffer room there. But like I said, we make custom stuff and we don't have any minimum orders right now. So if you have a special size that you want to do in your tent, you can call us to make just one bed, and we have a minimum order of, I think, $101. So no matter what size you want to make it, the minimum order for making one bed is going to be $100. And that's just how it goes. So if you're looking for the cheapest thing, it's probably not maybe the right thing. But if you need the absolute right setup and you need it to work forever, it's going to be worth the money. With shipping, $120 maybe to get your custom bed. It's not that big of a deal.
No, not at all. And Tyler, I really appreciate you taking the time to give us an hour and a quarter of your day out for hanging out with us and bringing us up to speed on what you're doing. And Ken, as always, thank you for all behind the scenes stuff that you do to make this happen every week.
Yeah.
Tyler, I want you to stick around so we can talk about that other grow, because I really do want to connect and have them come on. Leighton, as always, thank you so much. Now, go do what you need to do. And guys, don't forget, we have Wednesday. We have and we just did a show on I did a show on sand, silt, and clay this past Wednesday. So you guys might want to check that out to get a better understanding of, you need these layers because it's different biology that lives and exists in these different layers. And you need that to have the whole circle of life continue. That's why Leighton's horizontal soil system is a premium idea that you need to wrap your head around.
Yep. And if you can't find the materials, reach out to Kingdom Aquaponics. Let me know, and I could ship you a horizon anywhere. The sand you can get anywhere, and the organic compost you can get anywhere. So,
okay, guys, we'll see you on Wednesday.
All right. Peace out.